everyone for coming. Welcome to Progressive Watertown's May Forum. How do we get things done around here? Understanding and advocating your local government. You all know this, but for the sake of the recording, I will remind you, Progressive Watertown is a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts. And if you'd like to become involved in progressive politics at the local, state, and national level, no better way than becoming a Progressive Mass member. You can become a member at progressivemass.com. As we all know, progressive politics begins at the local level. We can make significant changes on so many issues, from climate change, affordable housing, to education and policing, through local policies and advocacy. But to do that, we need to know how to pull the right levers. And that's why we're here today, to equip all of you and hopefully many more people with the knowledge and strategy to effectively advocate at the local level. We will answer some questions at the end of the 3 presentations today, but if you think of things and you don't think you'll remember them, you can drop them into the chat and I will collect them and moderate them at the end. The first of our 3 speakers today, I'll introduce them all, you know them all. Watertown City Councilor Tony Palomba will outline the structure of our local government and the responsibilities of key elected and appointed officials. City Councilor Vincent Piccirilli will outline the legislative process here in Watertown. And then City Councilor Carolyn Bays will offer her insight into how you can most effectively advocate for yourself and for your preferred policies at the local level. I am going to, before Tony begins, ask everyone to make sure that you are muted so they won't get lots of background noise. My daughter's definitely going to run in here at one point, probably just loudly asking me something about a Disney movie. So I always mute myself and I think it's good practice. So we're going to hear from Tony, Vinny, and then Carolyn, and I'll let you take it away, Tony.
Thank you. Well, thank you to Diane and Eileen for putting together the program, Understanding and Advocating Your Local Government. My part is the understanding portion of the program. It's a bit dry, but it's important to if you want to influence city government. I mean, we know each other pretty well here, so some of this I'm going to change my approach here a little bit and go a little faster than I had planned before. But I do want to say that this PowerPoint that you're going to be seeing is adapted from one that was created by myself and a number of others at Watertown Forward about 1.5 years ago. And we update when we began working on publicizing the CRC, or the Charter Review Commission. This is really a first look at how Watertown government works, its components. Each of these components you could have a deep dive in and spend a whole session just talking about each one, depending on what your objective is. I'm going to read portions of each slide and highlight a couple of things on each of the slides, particularly those that were changed because of the CRC and our new home rule charter. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to hope that this works. And okay, now how do I get rid of your faces? Let's see. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think,
Yes.
yeah.
Looks good, Tony.
Okay.
You can just go from there.
All right. So this is, like I said, a first look at the over. I mean, how do I get you folks out of it? There we go. There we go. It'll be a quick glimpse of Watertown, the type of government we have, the components being the city council, the city manager, the school committee, the board of trustees. I mean, the Board of Library Trustees, and then something about our city boards and commissions. So I just wanted to give you a quick, we used this 1.5 years ago, and I thought it would be interesting just to keep this. This has been updated a little bit to reflect the census of 2020, excuse me, census. I think the most interesting piece about this is the annual budget. For this coming year, the fiscal 23 is proposed to be 174 million, 8.8 million. It's a little lower than last year's, not by a lot, but by $1 million plus lower. But comparatively, when I first joined the council in January of 2010, my first meeting was in January 2010, the budget at that point was $91 million. And so now it is 174.8 million, just to give you an idea of the change. So what is Watertown's government? Due to the Home Rule Charter, we no longer call ourselves the City of Watertown, known as the Town of Watertown. We now call ourselves the City of Watertown, but we've always been a city. For those who don't know, we've always been a city as defined by state law. And I think you all know we have the council manager form of government. This is an organization chart that you can find on the town's website. It's a little hard to read here, but generally it shows that the voters determine the library trustees, the city council, and the school committee. And then the council oversees and hires the city attorney, the auditor, the city manager, the council clerk, and in a second we'll talk about a new position that we'll be hiring and reviewing. There are 18 departments listed here. The boards, commissions, and committees are a little different than what I am going to show you very late in the slideshow, but this is many of them listed there. This again is on the website. So I feel a little bit like you all know this, but I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. City Council, who we are, you know that John Arasian is our newest city councilor at large, as myself and Caroline and John Gannon and John Arasian. And then we have 4 district councilors. We have District A, B, C, and D. And Nicole Gardner is our new councilor from A. Lisa and Vinny have been councilors for a while in B and C, and Emily Izzo is our new councilor from D. The city council president is Mark Sedaris, and he's also a member of the school committee, and he has been, our terms are 2 years, and there are no term limits. You can serve as long as you get reelected. The council president is paid $10,000 and the councilors are paid $7,500, and we have access, if we want, to the health benefits that are provided by the town. What do we do? We're the legislative branch of government, accountable to voters. We pass the annual city budget. We pass ordinances, orders, and resolutions. Everything that is spent, any tax dollar has to be approved by us as the council, and we approve all loan orders. We hire and evaluate, as I said, the city manager, the auditor, the town council, our council clerk, known as the, should have said city town council clerk, my apology. And now a new position, the municipal policy analyst, which was just advertised. If you know anybody who's interested in serving on the analyst for the city council. We meet, I'm sorry, we review our rules. We have council rules that are reviewed every 2 years at the beginning of each term. There are 12 subcommittees here. 3 councilors sit on each committee, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, all appointed by the council president. The subcommittee meetings are all open to the public, and here are the listing of the 12 committees. The media and public outreach is listed, but at this point is inactive. And we have our newest committee is the Committee on Climate and Energy, which was started by Council President Sedaris to look just at the climate and energy plan. We meet twice a month, on Monday, on the 2nd and 4th Monday of each month at 7 o'clock. We only meet once in July, August, and December. The council president can call additional meetings whenever he feels necessary. We do this often around budget time. We have some additional meetings. He also calls executive session meetings where we meet in private in executive session. The council president does determine what is on the agenda, determines the agenda and what can be on the agenda. He also creates, as I said, ad hoc or temporary committees. 2 of them listed here are the old ad hoc committee on transportation, and as you know, the Charter Review Committee, which completed its work. Individually, some of the new things that came out of the CRC, the Charter Review Commission, and then are now presently in our new home rule petition. The council president is required to deliver a state of the city in conjunction with the city manager. The city council president is also required to hold an annual open public meeting dedicated to discussion with the public. where the public will have an opportunity just to discuss with the council president and other members of the committee, other members of the council, a back and forth discussion. And you can see all the council extensive policies and are laid out in Article 2. The next component of our government is our city manager, and I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name, but I think it's pronounced George Prokartis, and he is soon to be affirmed tomorrow, Tuesday night. The council will have a formal vote, and George will be elected our new city manager on Tuesday night. He is considered the executive branch of government. He is appointed by the town council, and for an indefinite term. It doesn't have to live in Watertown. He appoints and supervises and can remove all department heads. He negotiates using contracts and recommends the members of the city's boards, commissions, committees. He is responsible for publishing an annual report that includes the operation of all departments, boards, and commissions. He's also responsible for creating the annual budget, which we do pass, but he creates, including a capital improvement program. The budget is presented to the council in a preliminary draft and then in a final draft. New from the CRC is now required to appoint a resident advisory board to assist him in selecting candidates to many of the multi-member boards that we have, boards, commissions, and committees. He is evaluated by the town council on a yearly basis, and I think that will happen more clearly each year from here on in. It didn't happen as organized as I think it will in the future, based on part of some of the changes in the charter review. Our next component, this is the third component of our government, is our school committee. There are 6 at-large members. They're elected throughout the city as opposed to by any districts. They're all selected by all members. There's a 7th member who we know is the city council president. Their terms are longer than the council terms. They're 4-year terms with 3 members up for election every 2 years. The school committee does select its own chair, vice chair, and secretary. And they meet on the first Monday of each month. And on the right, you can see the members of the school committee. The newest member of the school committee is Jessica Middlebrook, and Kendra Foley and Lindsay Muska and Amy Donahue are all now in leadership positions on the committee as the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. What do? Well, they're responsible for hiring the superintendent of the school district, as well as approving the superintendent's hire of the assistant superintendent and the business office director. They, like the council, are to determine policy and to direct the administration of those policies by the superintendent. They negotiate the collective bargaining agreements, different than in the city council, where the city manager negotiates the contracts. Makes reasonable rules and recommendations for how to manage the school. The committee, school committee, has 5 standing subcommittees. They're listed there. There are 3 members on each committee, and 1 member serves as the chair. You can find the details of how they operate in their school committee policy manual, and they are compensated at $4,500 and are and as city employees, they can take part in the home health benefits if they like. Finally, is our third, 4th group of people is our library trustees. There are 6 at-large library trustees who are elected by all voters in Massachusetts, in Watertown, excuse me. The trustees also serve 4-year terms, with 3 members elected every 2 years, similar to the school committee in terms of the 4-year term. And there are no term limits, neither are there term limits for the school committee. However, the trustees are not compensated and are not eligible for benefits. And there you see the members of the school, of the library trustees. 3 new library trustees. Oops, I'm sorry. I wasn't even moving. 3 new library trustees. As you see, are Sarah Carey, Rosemary Sue, and Maya Young. The last group of people, and I don't, I would consider this the powers in the library trustees can be found in our charter at chapter 2.4.2. However, they do just like the other bodies. They are supposed to establish the policies and procedures that are then administered by the library director. So they have a policy and procedure powers too. The director in this case, like the town manager and some city manager in some ways, has extensive powers to hire, fire, set salaries, and define the duties of all the employees. And finally, we come to the boards, commissions, and committees, and now a trust. There are many boards and commissions and committees in Watertown, and now we have a new trust, which we'll talk about in a second. Some have been active for many years. Others have only been established in the last 12 months. Most are composed of resident volunteers who receive no compensation for their service and are selected by the city manager and approved by the city council. I say most because not everyone operates that way. Some include a city employee as a member, and some have a city employee who staffs the entity as part of their job responsibilities, but are not members. There's one where the city manager is a member of the entity. Some of the things that I found interesting when I put this together, I had the most fun looking at the boards, commissions, and committees and the new trust with some of the interesting things about them. Some are, there are no term limits for most of the members. Some have 1, 2, or 3 year terms that are then renewed, could be renewed automatically. Some have alternate members, some don't have alternate members. Some have select their own chair. Some members are representative or they're on a committee where they also represent their other committees. Some have employees more employees on the committee than residents. Some are temporary and short term. Some are created by city departments. Some require Republican and Democrat members, the Democratic members. Some require representatives of specific professions. Some determine what Watertown's buildings look like, and some make major decisions that impact your life, and some are only advisory. This is a list of the boards, commissions, and committees. As these, we have our bicycle and pedestrian committee, and then again, each one of these, you could spend a good half an hour on each committee going through its history, its responsibilities, its makeup, and so forth. But I just listed the committee and their members. The Board of Assessors, the Board of Health, the Cable Access Corporation, the Charter Review Committee, which has completed its work, the Commission on Disabilities, the Community Preservation Committee, which has been meeting for the last 1.5 to 2 years. The new committee, the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Committee, the Comprehensive PAC. The Comprehensive Plan PAC is a new committee with 6 members. The Conservation Committee, the Council on Aging, the Elections Commission, the Cultural Council has 16 members. I was surprised at the number. The Historic Commission, the Historic District Commission, the Public Arts and Culture Committee is a new committee. And just beginning to meet and have 9 members. And then the Resilient Watertown Stakeholders Advisory Group had 39 members, and they were responsible under the leadership of Laurel Schwab for creating the Climate and Energy Plan. The School Building Committee, which Vinny sits on, has been meeting for a couple of years. They have 14 members. The Stormwater Advisory Committee, the new Solid Waste and Recycling Advisory Committee. Members has 6 members. I think they will be approved, be interviewed soon by the Committee on Public Works, and then voted on, approved by the full town council. The newest trust, the only thing that's really called a trust, but is the Watertown Affordable Housing Trust, which has 7 members, and this is the committee where the city manager sits on with the other six members. that will go into effect soon. We're interviewing those 6 members for that committee in about a week and a half, or I'm sorry, this coming week. And then one committee you don't hear a lot about, but is very important given the number of biotech businesses in Watertown, is the Biosafety Committee, the Watertown Housing Authority, and then the Watertown Housing Partnership will dissolve as soon as the Watertown Affordable Trust is formally established. And then our very important, last one on the list, but very important in terms of the decisions it makes for the town, is the Zoning Board of Appeal. Just as quickly, this last slide is more of an information, I'm not going to go in detail of it. It just simply says that there are a number of state laws, federal laws, the United States Constitution, state regulations, and case law, all of which will usually override what is in our charter. So these are some of the limitations that a charter has. And that concludes my presentation. So I'll turn it over to Vinny.
Okay, great job, Tony. So we ready for me? I'm going to share my screen here. Hold on a second. Okay. How a city ordinance is passed. That's what I'm going to be doing today. So you know, a legislative body, which that's the city council. Yeah, there's any legislative body has 2 primary tasks. One is managing the finances, which means imposing taxes and approving appropriations, voting on the budget, you know, doing transfers of funds, loan orders, whatnot. The second major thing that legislative body does is pass laws, and that's what an ordinance is. And so for a city like Watertown, if you look at our charter, there's really a very simple process for passing a law. You know, at the first council meeting, an ordinance has a first reading where it's presented to the public the first time. And then it gets published in the newspaper 10 days before a public hearing. And then at the second council meeting, we have the public hearing and the vote of the council. So really simple. And the whole purpose under the law of having a first reading is that 2-week period is time for the public to advocate with the council. So that's, hold on a second. So that's really what it is. And then the statutory public hearing, the public has a right to speak before the council actually votes on the ordinance. Super simple. So the 2 points I want to make. How does the proposed ordinance get on the agenda as a first reading is a complicated process, and we'll cover that next. The other thing I want to point out is if you wait until the first reading to advocate for something, for all practical purposes, it's too late, you know, because a lot of work is usually gone into an ordinance by the time it gets to the first reading. So really, it's the committee process, which is the key process for creating a law. The first step is the council has to vote to refer a matter developing the ordinance to the committee, and which committee it gets referred to, it depends on what the ordinance is about. Then the committee has meetings, multiple meetings, usually, to develop the proposed ordinance, hammer out the language. And then that goes into a committee report, and that committee report goes back to the council, it gets put on the agenda. And in the committee report, there will be a recommendation to ask the full town council to pass the ordinance that the committee developed. So, so the takeaway for us here is that there's a lot of work that actually advocacy work that needs to be done prior to the referral to the committee. So that's really, there's a lot of work by the public and advocates that need to happen before that point. The committee process is another critical piece because the public can participate in the committee discussion. Some cities don't allow that, Watertown does. The success of an ordinance is really determined by what happens at the committee meetings. The other thing I would point out is this: if the committee recommendation on the ordinance is not unanimous, it's usually not a good sign, and it's unlikely that the ordinance is going to pass. So that's not always true, but it's just if it's not unanimous, it usually means there's some structural problem that the committee was not able to resolve. So the committee process is super important. So a couple of things. And this is only 5 slides here, so this isn't going to be a long presentation. So I tried to, so really the key to success about passing an ordinance is the advocacy prior to the referral to the committee. So, so again, that's before the council even takes it up. So to be successful, passing a law, it really, getting a law passed, really, the law should really address a critical issue that's already in the public arena, that has, that there's public awareness of what's going on. The successful ordinance really needs to be well thought out and easy to understand, because if it gets too complicated for the public to understand, that it's hard to get a lot of support. And the other thing about, a successful ordinance has broad public support and really doesn't try to overreach. It sticks to the one topic that the ordinance is supposed to address, rather than trying to put 5 or 6 things into an ordinance, because that creates just too much confusion in the mind of the public. It's better to do 5 separate ordinances than try to shove 5 things into one ordinance. So the advocacy is to build the support before the referral to the committee. So advocates need to educate the public ahead of time and get the word out. The advocates need to discuss with individual councilors to build support one-on-one. And then the other thing is, depending on what the topic of the ordinance is about, it's the advocates should really bring it to other municipal bodies, like the boards, committees, or commissions, to get them to weigh in and sort of do buy-in for it. So these are the things that sort of make the referral to the committee and the start of the committee meetings go much more smoothly. The second key to success is what happens in the committee meetings. And, we've all heard about, making laws or like making sausage. Well, the committee meetings is where the sausage is made. Typically, there's 3 members of a committee. Sometimes there's joint committees, could be up to 6 councilors on that. But generally speaking, all councilors attend the meeting and participate in discussion with the committee. And at that point, each councilor can express their constituent concerns. And what you'll hear is that, generally speaking, at the beginning of the process, not everybody's in agreement with it. And, because individual councilors have different constituencies, they'll raise an issue about, what works for them or what doesn't work. And then the committee, over the course of, it could be 2 or 3 meetings, it could be 10 or 12 meetings. It really depends on the complexity of the ordinance. The committee's job is to sort of tweak it and make changes to ensure the support of the final ordinance. And the reason for that is because, if you don't have it, enough of the council saying, yep, I'm going to support this, or if you make this one change, I will support it, you can get a good sense about, it's not going to do any good to bring a recommendation back to the council when 5 people are on record of not supporting it. So, we want to aim for success here. So what the advocates should really do at this point during the committee meetings is attend the meetings and speak to the issues, participate. We allow the public to participate in committee meetings. The advocate should listen to what individual councilors are saying and keep track of who has concerns and then follow up with them individually. So, that is a really critical piece for success, is to find out what the issue is, why an individual counselor is not supporting a specific thing, and what would make them support it. It's okay to ask that question, and have the ongoing follow-up conversations with individual counselors. That's important. One-on-one conversations with individual counselors. The third thing, the third key to success for getting a law passed, an ordinance passed, is good process. And everybody knows me, knows I'm a big process person. And my mantra here is, well, having good process does not guarantee good results. Bad process almost never gives good results. I mean, that's true. That's true about just about anything, including passing an ordinance. So, for us as counselors, and even, the members of the community who attend meetings, we want to be methodical and not go off on tangents. Let's stick to the issue at hand and not try to bring too many other non-important topics into the discussion. We have to understand that compromise is part of the process. This is a democracy. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And we need to understand and accept the plurality of those opinions. And, everybody's opinion, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Some opinions make more sense than others, of course, but part of the success in getting any piece of legislation passed is letting people, even people who oppose what we're trying to do, feel like their voice is heard. And that's a really important thing, is people need to feel like their voice is heard, even though we have to vote and maybe not accept what they want, but they get to participate in the process. And finally, be patient. Good work takes time, and not all, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years. So that's the one thing we all have to do, is just be patient, because we want, ultimately, when we pass a law, we want it to stand the test of time and really give us the results we want as a community. So that's my short presentation. Hope everyone found that helpful. All right, and Caroline, so we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Ours were kind of like, you could almost intertwine our presentations. So let me see. I'm sharing. Okay. How to lobby effectively, creating change through effective advocacy with your elected representatives. Now, you could take a lot of this and actually, this goes for the state level and to a certain degree the federal level, a lot of what I'm going to say. There's a lot of questions that people have asked me about this, but number one is the thing that you really need to do is get the ask right. And there's a lot that goes into getting the ask right. So a lot of it is around understanding the process, building relationships, and understanding the law. And, Vinny just talked to to process. And that is what I have as the first thing you need to understand: process. Vinny's right. I've noticed this. Process is crucial to the success or failure of how city council works. And ensuring a fair and thorough hearing of all viewpoints is essential to doing our job. And we try to have a really fair process. And this is where you can be part of the process and be part of the people sharing their viewpoints. And, you just have to understand the process and know where and when. Vinny talked a little bit about that. Where and when you can have your input to what we're going to do in the end. I actually have tools at the end, but the most important tool I put at the beginning, because this really is the beginning of what you're going to do when you're to become an effective an effective lobbyist or activist for whatever you're trying to get past. You need to build relationships with your elected representatives, all of your elected representatives, and building a positive relationship is really your most effective tool. It is what you can do to really help get things through. In order to do that, first of all, be polite. I think that kind of goes without saying, but sometimes it's hard if you're disagreeing with someone, but really being polite and assuming a positive attitude and building trust. You don't have to agree with everybody about everything. You don't even have to agree with, someone who you usually do agree with all the time. But so it's okay to disagree, but you can still build trust even if you occasionally disagree, and you can build trust if you always disagree, as long as you keep the communication lines open and keep the conversation going. I can't tell you, like, if you are doing all of this, if you are building those relationships and you keep that conversation going, you might be able to convince that legislator or that, city councilor that what you're saying is the way they need to go, and that you're right, and that they need to change their position on something. And it has happened before, and so don't give up. But when you're doing it, assume a positive attitude and be polite, and do it with the goal of keeping a strong relationship with your legislator or your counselor. Other thing I just wanted to note was open meeting law in municipalities when you're advocating, because some people just aren't really aware of them, and it can cause confusion, or if you don't know what exactly they mean, because it does affect you and how you're going to advocate. No more than a quorum of city councilors, in our case it's 4, can discuss an issue that they will be voting on. And an SJC, a Supreme Judicial Court ruling, determined that serial communication, in other words, one counselor talks to another counselor who talks to another counselor, if that happens and there's a quorum and there's any sense that there was a communication that this viral communication was kind of meant, it can be a violation of open meeting law. So it's not just that we can't talk to each other, but we can't talk to one counselor or 2 counselors, and those 2 counselors talk to another counselor. That's 5. That's a violation of open meeting law. So we kind of tend to be very careful about talking to each other and not violating open meeting law. And just so you know, those subcommittees, the Parks and Rec, all those committees he was talking about, they only have 3 members. So we're not allowed to talk to any other member about something we might be voting on. So just be aware of that. And this is why. What does that mean for you? It means just be aware that that's an issue for us. So be careful when you communicate with us about how we're planning on voting on something. First of all, not all meetings are open meetings. Open meetings is a very legal definition. I've been in situations where all the counselors are very quiet in a meeting that looks like an open meeting, feels like an open meeting, but it's actually not an open meeting because it wasn't posted in the legal way, 48 hours, it wasn't on the billboard. It's actually just a public meeting that is not by definition an open meeting, and we kind of have to be careful at those meetings not to say something that would lead the other counselors to know something. The other thing is to please email us separately when you're advocating for something or when you're asking us how we feel about something. Don't do a full, don't put us all in the same email. Don't do an @city councilor, because it's very awkward to reply to that, because sometimes the whole thread can get forwarded when someone's talking. So it's awkward for us to reply to an email that is sent to all the city councilors. So yeah, try to communicate with us separately when it's about something we're going to vote on. And please do not communicate to us about how other counselors are planning on voting, because we don't want to be accused of plotting or something, and we're innocent in it, and probably nothing would happen. But just be aware that there's open meeting law. It puts us in an awkward situation if you're telling us how other counselors are planning on voting about something, and we really don't want to hear it. So that's open meeting law, just for you guys to be aware of. What is the ask? I'm saying this because whatever issue you're going to be asking us to either have an ordinance, it could be anything from a referral to passing an ordinance to just changing a policy, whatever it is, be clear what your ask is. Make sure that your ask is something that we can do. Sometimes we can't do things, as if you saw what Vinny had written about the different levels of government. We're the lowest level of government. If there's a state law that doesn't let us do something, we can't do it. Sometimes also it's something that the city council can't do, that somebody else is supposed to do. But be clear on your ask, be clear on whether or not we can do it. And when you're making the ask, know your facts and back them up, and stick to the facts and keep your arguments relevant to your ask. Also, ask us questions, because you never know where we are or what, how we feel about something. But ask us questions, especially if a city councilor is an expert on an issue. Go to that city councilor, talk to them, just so that you can relate whatever your ask is, whatever you're focusing on, to what the city council can do for you on that matter. Speak to the right people. Sometimes your ask is about a policy or an ordinance, and this is just, your basic government 101, legislative versus executive branch. We're the legislative body as the city councilors, that we pass ordinances, decide on budget items and policy issues. The administrative part of the government is the action oriented, they fill the potholes. So anything that you'd actually do, they are usually responsible for that. And the other thing is that if something has been referred to committee, or if you want something referred to committee, look at the city council subcommittees, see who is on those subcommittees, especially if something's already been referred to a subcommittee, because those are the people who are going to be bringing a proposal to the full town council. That's who you would talk to at that point. And then, of course, sometimes we're not the right people to ask at all. It's boards and commissions. Number of people came to talk to us about mask mandate. Well, we don't do mask mandates or lifting mask mandates. That's the Board of Health. We don't really have much of a say in that. Now we can always go to a board or a commission, which as I sometimes do when somebody asks me to advocate for something on their behalf. I've been willing to do that, and I know other counselors have as well. So we can do things like that, but we can't actually, vote on it or make change necessarily. It's really up to those boards and commissions to create policy or change something like the mask mandate. So that's where you would go. You'd go to those boards and commissions and make the ask to them. When should I ask? Timing is important. I think Vinny spoke a lot to this, so I won't talk too much. If you want to impact the development of an ordinance, obviously, before it's referred to committees, too early. After it's on a city council agenda, is too late. You need to attend those subcommittee meetings or relevant boards and commissions. That's the time when it's really important. And obviously, Vinny already spoke to this a little, if you want a referral, then obviously you start whenever, you want to start. But if you are asking for us to vote for up or down, you see something that maybe you can, if you see it on the agenda, It's almost too late, like Vinny said. However, if you do want to contact us, you better contact us as soon as possible. Don't wait till an hour before the meeting, because it's really too late. Like Vinny said, the best thing to do is if you can, come to subcommittee meetings and create, make your voice heard there and help to create the policy change or the ordinance that we're working on. So the other thing is using all the tools. Figure out what's in your toolbox and use those tools. I've already said building a relationship is probably the most important thing you can do. So building a relationship with your counselors is number one. But if you want to put a proposal or a referendum or a referral on the agenda, you can do things like find a friendly counselor and ask them to sponsor an amendment or a referral. Or you can bring a proposal to a local activist group and ask them to support it and bring it to the council. And you can even, and this has happened several times, use the Home Rule Charter Provisions Section 7.8 and get 150 signatures certified and bring it to the council, and it puts something on the town council agenda for us to vote on. So think these are some of the tools that are available to you for getting things on the agenda, but also just for getting things passed. You can raise awareness. You can organize forums and public information campaigns. Use letters to the editor. That's probably one of the most underutilized tools in every activist tool chest. Using letters to the editors to build public support is really important. Obviously, go on social media. You can even just start your own group, which has happened. There are groups that have formed in town. I'm sure we can all think of it. I think Pigs Gusset was formed just so that they can get something passed, which they're working on right now. And the other thing is you can not just starting your own group, but if there's already groups existing or if there's multiple groups existing, engage the local groups, engage all the local groups. You can, and if you've got multiple local groups advocating for your whatever the issue is that you're advocating for, you've got a much stronger, chance of being heard. You have a lot of voices behind you, and that will really help to get your point across. So that was it. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you guys so much. That was really great. That was the most thorough overview of local government I have ever encountered. And I'm excited to share this recording with folks. We should offer it as our welcome to Progressive Watertown. Here's a 101 on how to get things moving.